celebrating 9 years of podcast excellence. The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
So just wrapping up Dynamite as I record episode 675 of the Wrestling is Real podcast. And tonight's Dynamite was magical. Some of the best promo work you can imagine. And when you think about the promo work that's being done for WrestleMania, leading up to that, which we're going to talk about the bulk of tonight, and I look at what we're getting to set up for Revolution. Okay. MJF and his promo leading into his match, the dog collar match with CM Punk, which CM Punk put a real push and did an amazing, iconic promo showing the dog collar, talking about Piper in Portland. And then tonight, MJF comes back and brings back the comments about it. And MJF was just amazing in his promo. Can we just talk about this for a few minutes? Okay. The point is going along and taking what he says. All right. I don't want to go through the whole promo, but of course it's one of those you have to go back and watch again. His backstory and the fact he actually said, in January 2014, CM Punk left him when he needed him the most, realized if he's the best in the world, how can some 5'5" ADD riddled Jew boy do it? And he buried his dreams, went to college like a good boy until one day he was on Twitter, saw a picture of CM Punk shaking hands with Bryan Danielson, says he was livid and packed his bags and went home and promised himself he was going to be the best wrestler in the world in spite of CM Punk. And just the way it was put, and then CM Punk coming down to the ring afterwards, and MJF emotional in his promo, and CM Punk goes down to the ring, stands on the apron, and he stares at MJF. Is this true? Is all this what you said true? And MJF, tear in his eye, acknowledges, yes, it's true, walks out. That is storytelling among storytelling. Reality in place, and then you're talking about what you do not expect from a heel promo. Like normally we would think, okay, where's the screw job? Where's the swerve here? There wasn't. Personal story to push this match. And if I needed anything else possible out of the greatness of promos and work that's been done in this program with CM Punk and MJF, to give me a dog collar match at the pay-per-view next week, and to give me this promo almost at the go-home, I mean, take my money, man. Take my money. It is incredible work. And it's like as if MJF he has things he can come up with to just almost one-up his promos. But also the spectrum of what he's able to do. How far, really just which way can he go? To going pure anger to pure emotion and sorrow and sadness and depression. I mean, this passive-aggressive shit. Incredible work. This is why MJF is basically, hands down, my favorite wrestler right now. And I got a lot of them. And it's funny. Now, and I also got to talk about, Eddie Kingston is another one. And him and Chris Jericho with haymakers back at each other. Jericho just not holding back at Eddie the same way. Another match that we already knew was kind of like leading up to it, and they set up for the pay-per-view too. What an incredible Revolution pay-per-view coming up in 2 weeks on Sunday. It's an incredible night. Look at this. When I got to look back at what's going on here, this pay-per-view is just massive. Hangman Adam Page versus Adam Cole for the world title. Britt Baker defends against the women's title against Thunder Rosa, which will count now. Another barn burner of a match. Face of the Revolution ladder match. Keith Lee, Wardlow, Powerhouse Hobbs, Ricky Starks, and 2 more names to be determined. I mean, this is just wonderful. There's not a bad match on the card. Dog collar match, CM Punk versus MJF. What? Tag team title match, Jurassic Express, Red Dragon, and one more team to be determined. Another barn burner of a match, and Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley. I don't know. I mean, they can't book any other matches. There's just too much there. That's a jam-packed 3-hour pay-per-view right there. Jam-packed 3 hours. I mean, I can't even see how that movie, how that pay-per-view is not going to be an A+ on the card. Just by the work they've done for the setup and everything, it's an A+ pay-per-view ready to go. Revolution, the pay-per-view that's going to go in between the WWE pay-per-views that we're waiting for between Elimination Chamber and WrestleMania, and AEW throwing a shot. Really putting out a great effort for a pay-per-view coming but Orlando. I mean, I'm surprised you're going to just put it in the Edition Arena, or whatever that name that arena is, at Central Florida. And the fact that it's a 9,000-seat venue, but then why don't you just take Amway Center? Seriously, why don't you just take the Amway Center if you're going to do that? Shit, take the Citrus Bowl. Take the Citrus Bowl. You could have done that, or take UFC Stadium, whatever. I mean, this show, you could have sold more seats for it, but this thing to the gills is, or Orlando's going to have a real jam-packed show for Revolution. I mean, you guys are getting a blockbuster show. Just saying. And we're going to talk more about that. We'll do a whole preview for that next week on the program. Focus on that. A little bit of time away from WrestleMania. But, of course, if anything WrestleMania related comes up, we'll talk about it. But right now, tonight, there are some things going on when it comes to WrestleMania The Build. And we have to talk about what they've done in terms of getting the show ready for WrestleMania time. And one of the telling signs that really says a lot about what's going on with their events and how they're doing so far. Well, you got to look at their tickets going on to the house shows leading up to the show. So the notable thing that was being talked about this week was Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman setting up a match, which should be supposedly Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley, in a match at Madison Square Garden, March 5th. So, Revolution weekend. March 5th, you're supposed to have that show. And as of February 21st, 2 days ago, half full. First of all, the show is scheduled to seat as much as 9,500 in their current setup. So, for an arena that they've obviously have put more in before, and for a house show, they don't need to put the big full TV setup out there or the pay-per-view setup. They don't need the staging like that. They could keep it much more minimal, but they're not, I guess, or they're just tapering off part of the arena. But when they can't get, Midtown New York City, they can't go to Manhattan and put the show there and sell it out. I mean, just because it's WrestleMania, on the road to WrestleMania alone, I don't know what the tickets are, but that's pretty sad. But that's what we're looking at right now. They're not selling out these shows. It's pretty rough. Now, I'm looking at Wrestletix to see if they had anything else put together in terms of what they had left for the show. But I don't know. I don't know what there was left. I mean, there are other shows that are selling out, and they're just kind of like perennial places. For instance, they're going to be in Hershey, Pennsylvania for SmackDown this Friday, and it looks like they're going to go and sell out the show. They got about 100 tickets left. AEW Revolution at Edition Financial Arena, they don't have any tickets left. Like it said a couple days ago, they still had 57 left. That's gone. Sold out. Pretty much, they're going to be sold out for this show. But then you look at what Wrestletix put out February 21st, 55% capacity. I mean, that's sad, but that's where they are right now, and they're not doing much better. So, for that card, I forget who they're going to have that's going to be on the card, but like the show's a pretty good card. I know Rusted Open went extensively on it, but yeah. If I look at the tickets right now and see what they got, they still got a bunch of seats left. Like you can go right now and you can still find seats available. I mean, at the moment, I'm looking at their arena, and there are available tickets all along the area that's not the stage. All along. And there are still seats on the floor available. Now, the prices, okay, on the floor, you're looking at $117 all the way up to $150. And there's nothing in the main, like on where the hard camera side is, but like in the spot, $117 to $150 that you can still find tickets. And by the way, lots of tickets lined up that are still empty in those spots. And above that upper tier, you're talking about $60, $42, and then $30 for the bleeders. People are not going to this thing. They better bring the price down or something to go and do that. But that status right there, that kind of significance is not good for them. But the show already has a lot of things scheduled on it. So the word was that Brock Lesnar was going to defend the title at Madison Square Garden. That's a big deal for them. And they had to put that out. This Monday on Raw, they finally made a mention of it. They had not much else to work off of, so they had to do something. Now, as for the card itself, you also have Roman Reigns versus Seth freaking Rollins, Universal title. Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, triple threat for the Raw Women's title. Ronda Rousey and Sasha Banks against Charlotte Flair and Natalya in a tag team match. RK Bro, AJ Styles, New Day, Usos are all supposed to be in action. That's not a boring card, but there is no interest. People are not excited. They are not motivated. They're not buzzed. Your number one market, nobody's coming. Nobody feels anything right now. There's nothing there. They just don't feel like much of doing anything. So what are you going to do about that? You got to ask yourself, what is going on with the card? I mean, the interest of what there is, listen, it's not like they don't have star power, but it is star power that we've seen over and over. Of the matches we already know that are scheduled now for WrestleMania, we know for sure probably 4 matches. We already know probably about 6. So we know Universal title is going to have Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, title versus title. Which, have they said title versus title? Legitimately, have they said title? We have to wait till SmackDown. I haven't heard it yet. I know they want to say that Brock Lesnar kind of made that point that he wanted to go champion versus champion. I don't remember saying title versus title. I don't know if it's a winner take all. But you could tell me if he did or not. No, okay, I'm going to say, all right, WWE.com has said, as a couple of days ago, they confirmed that the third bout between Lesnar and Reigns will be winner take all. Both titles on the line. And it's the third time such a match is headlined at WrestleMania. Previously, it was WrestleMania 6, Hogan and Ultimate Warrior, which was WWF title and Warriors Intercontinental title up for grabs. And then the same thing going on with WrestleMania 35, where Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair put titles on the line in a triple threat match that also included Becky Lynch. And that's when Becky Two Belts was born. So, winner take all. Okay, that was the part I didn't know. But again, they just said that it was announced, and the .com reported it. It is winner take all. They even put it in caps, winner take all, for people like me to make sure we didn't get confused. That's good to know. Thank you so much, .com, for doing that for me. Because they should say that in there. Winner take all. I'm going to add that to my notes right now, just to make sure I got that in there. Then you got Charlotte Flair, Ronda Rousey, SmackDown Women's title, which we've kind of seen this match before. Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch, which we kind of saw, a program with not that long ago, from SummerSlam all the way down to Survivor Series. And then Miz and Logan Paul against Rey Mysterio and Dominik Mysterio. That's it. There's not a lot of star. I mean, you're not getting any of the extra star power that's there. Edge still is expected to have an opponent. Okay, you got one celebrity in the card. You got Edge coming out as one of your part-timers. You got Ronda Rousey. You got Brock Lesnar. What else is left? And I get it. The expectations of the IWC are... I mean, it's impossible expectations. Impossible right now. Because the company has not done their due diligence to build stars leading up to it. We can all talk about that, my fellow podcasting brethren. They all say the same thing like I do. But the thing is, too, is that this is where they have to realize that they're at the point again where they don't have the part-timers to bring back anymore. One of the things, you don't have Bobby Lashley now part of the show, which would have been some help. They're talking about Stone Cold Steve Austin and a rumored deal where he could go ahead and have some kind of confrontation with Kevin Owens. No, they teased that. There could be a possibility that Cody Rhodes comes in, but I don't think that. I mean, Cody Rhodes will be significant in terms of the company year-round, but not for WrestleMania. I don't think he makes that much of a dent at all for WrestleMania, as a matter of fact. AJ Styles doesn't have a match yet, but yet he just signed up to a new contract, and he's definitely going to be a lifer there, so he's felt loyal to the brand, and now he's staying with them. And there's nobody else. But then, you know what? Is there anybody else out there? And I just put this I put this out there as a hypothesis, just fantasy booking here. When I look at the other organizations out there, the other wrestling companies, you know, and the levels of stars that they have, and how I feel like if they needed to bring stars in with some instant star power, not for this WrestleMania, but down the line, if there was anybody they had or they haven't tapped into that could go in right away and be brought up to the forefront. I mean, you can't bring up Braun Breaker or LA Knight and get them up there right away to do anything and build them up to such a level. Like, the process of building stars in WWE is the fact is they have the backwards kind of hot and cold push and pull method of building stars. They don't just put somebody on a rocket ship and just let them soar to the moon. They don't let it happen. We see that with Bianca Belair. Hot and cold, hot and cold. I feel like AJ Styles was always hot and cold. You always feel like, even with Dolph Ziggler's thing, it was hot and cold. Big E, hot and cold. Kofi Kingston, hot and cold. It's just what they do. Seth Rollins, hot and cold. Kevin Owens, hot and cold. Randy Orton, hot and cold. But Randy Orton has such a long list of accomplishments and all his work that he's done. I mean, there's not much else you could do. Plus, when you are so trodden with the same stars over and over, there's nothing fresh to do. There's nothing else you can do in terms of dream matches to make anything else special. If you wanted to make sure one of the matches you had this year at WrestleMania would go sell out, is if you're able to go and pull Undertaker out of retirement while he's doing the Hall of Fame, and they have been a match somehow, some way, another cinematic match maybe, or you're able to get The Rock or John Cena to come out and work a match, but there's no time for that either. You can't go to some of the stars. You can't go to some of the big names, the big ticket box office guys that have left the company, and they can still be around, but if their schedules allow. But they don't have anything like that right now. And we talked a few weeks ago about how they do have that ceiling they have to create for themselves because they're afraid. What if the next person we build into a big, huge star could be picked up by somebody else? Look, Sasha Banks hasn't been booked on the card yet. We don't know when she's coming back and when she does. We don't know if Bayley's coming back, but Sasha Banks is, box office. She's a pretty big star. And I think she does move tickets at WrestleMania to some point, but I don't know who she'd take on. What will be the match to put for her in, but it's right now they don't have her set up in anything. So she was in Royal Rumble, she's out, and now we don't know what's going to happen to her next. But we also don't know what other projects she's working on as well. So that's the whole issue of everything at the moment. What else do you do? I mean, really, what else is there that they can do to build some other interest into this show with 6 weeks left? I haven't read what the tickets are right now for WrestleMania and how they're selling, but I don't think they're going to do that well right now with what they have. I think they're struck. You don't have two men's singles titles on the pay-per-view. You put them in one, which is good for one night. But you got to get both nights to go. And I don't know what you do. And that's going to be night 2, by the way. I mean, do you close with Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair? You could. Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, I'd imagine that's a match you you start off with on one of the nights. But there are no other titles that matter, that mean anything. It just doesn't. Johnny Knoxville with Sami Zayn, that's not going to matter either. Nothing to the really significant to anything. But there is no other star power that you have that will build. Like, you can build the mid-card all you want. You can build the undercard as much as you want. But in essence, you really just got one big main event match. Charlotte and Ronda, it was a main event match, but not this time. I just don't know what you do. I mean, it would be nice to see Charlotte, Ronda, and Sasha make it a 3-way, build that up a little bit better. I think they still have time to do that if they wanted to. But they got to find a way for Sasha to get in, if that's even possible. But everything they've done to build up the matches they have so far, they're all built off of Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber. They all have proper booking. They're all logically booked. And that's it. But there's not much else to work off of after that. And that's their problem. They don't have any other upper tier stars where if you had a couple other names that were vying for the world title, for the Universal title, the world title, or the WWE Championship, that would be a different story. Some other main eventers that are always around that main event scene. Well, you're not doing that right now because Seth Rollins, I mean, at the moment, you could push him back up somewhere, but it sounds like Rollins and Owens are going to be a tag team to go ahead and throw into a triple threat for the tag team titles and latch them into the RK Bro Alpha Academy feud, which has been pretty good so far. But there's not much else to work off of. And then the build up within the show, the things you could take away from the show, like on Monday night or Friday night. So we don't know what happened with SmackDown post Elimination Chamber. That's coming up. But after, the post show for the aftermath Elimination Chamber. So Lesnar comes out. They plug the Madison Square Garden show. Tommaso Ciampa and Finn Balor are now a tag team, apparently. But those two collectively are not the type of level stars that WrestleMania needs right now. They don't have any WrestleMania tier talent, except for a couple. I mean, Ronda Rousey, yes. Charlotte Flair, when she's out there so much, there's nothing special about her now, especially when she's held that belt for so long. The match is going to be good, but the buildup is just, we already been working through Charlotte and Ronda before. We had this happen when they had the 3-way at WrestleMania 35. So you have that. What are you going to do next? Rhea Ripley and Nikki Ash continue to be a thing. Damian Priest defense was in a non-title, but he's not anything considered. They focus on the U.S. title on Monday night, the 24/7 title, so just filler. Right? And then you had Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair face-to-face, and Belair having a match with Doudrop and getting the win. A very good match, by the way. Bianca Belair feats of strength are just amazing. And then Edge, we know he's going to have a match, but they don't say who it's going to be. Edge AJ Styles is a good match. They could go with it, but we're talking about selling tickets. We're talking about being able to sell 100,000 tickets both nights. It's the hole they put themselves into. We talked about this before. And I was hoping that the company would actually do something that you got to be prepared for that. But I don't think they're going to make that expectation. So the word is that WrestleMania 38 so far, and this story is from Monday, report says that they got about 54,000 tickets for the 2-night event sold. Estimated 54,000. Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer says They had a 2-for-1 offer to get some tickets pushed around, but there's still plenty left for both nights. He says they moved a lot of tickets this week when they did the 2-for-1 special. They got it from like 47 to 53,000 each night. So they're doing, whatever that means. That's where they're at. I mean, it's only a few. They still got a lot of tickets to go. They got 27,000 for each night left. So they're looking at trying to get 81,000 for both, or 80,000 for both nights. So that means that stage is going to get picked up, and they're not going to pull 100,000 like they did before. 80,000 would be the plan, where they could just build out some monstrosity of a stage. But that's a lot of tickets left with 6 weeks to go. Now, what are you going to do that's going to get the interest? You want to take the excuses of COVID, overseas travel? Sure. But that just means there's more people domestically that can go and make the trip. People from Canada can go. People from Mexico can go. I mean, there's going to be enough people out there to go watch the event, especially if you want to go local, if you got the tickets at a certain price. And Dallas, Texas is a big hub for airport. I mean, they go there to visit, to go to the event is huge. They should be able to go and sell this out. And they did before. But what are they going to do now? The 2-night thing probably was a stretch for them to do it again. But they could take the gate money. They'll take what they can get for it. Plus, the way they're doing it, they're also cornering the market to make sure there are no other events going on around WrestleMania weekend. There are some, but really, it's tough to go and do because SmackDown on Friday, Hall of Fame on Friday night, then you got an NXT show in the early part of the day, the matinee on Saturday, then night 1, then night 2. Where are the other indie promotions going to put shows around? Like, how early can they get people in if they want to get them on a Thursday or get them in on a Friday during the day or something like that? I mean, what are they going to do? That's all tough and do. It's going to be difficult for any other shows to do. So, the WWE's cornering the market. They want to make sure they don't get anybody else to get their chance to have anything as a part of this. I got that. So what do you do next? To me, I just think about the other stars that they have in other companies. And, they're much smaller gates, obviously. But I also think about some of the stars that they could have had that might have been, that are built up now to a certain level. And I ask myself, if it was just perchance you saw certain stars that were over in AEW or other organizations, if they were able to be brought back, let's just say for a one night, some kind of deal was made, a one-night appearance. What if you had Matt Cardona show up at that event? For whatever reason. It's amazing how Matt Cardona has made himself such a big star in such a short amount of time after leaving. Him and Chelsea Green have been, doing just fine. They're doing very well. And this is where Matt Cardona doesn't necessarily have a home. He did a little bit in AEW. He's worked Impact Wrestling for a while now. He's now NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. He's also working GCW, which I think he's champ there, right? There's a lot going on with what he's doing. He has been very busy. And I think of other organizations, if they wanted to still be wrestling, there's a lot of stars out there. If they wanted to just be able to just take as free agents as they could and just pick them up. Of course, there's certain stars in AEW that they let go. I just thought about if Nick Aldis could be something special in a WWE system, but I don't think it would ever happen. I don't think he would want to go. I think he's still set to go and be NWA champion once again, somewhere down the line, which that match is supposed to happen this weekend, Power Search, right? No, not Power Search, Blend of Thunder. No. That's MLW, sorry. Oh, Crockett Cup. There we go, Crockett Cup, which, by the way, that looks really good, that event. And headline with that match, Matt Cardona and Nick Aldis for the World Heavyweight title. Great stuff. Now, I look at other organizations when I think about MLW, and I always think, well, can Hammerstone ever make himself a bigger deal somewhere else? I think so. I don't know how much of his promotability, but there's just something special where I would hate to be in the shoes trying to get WrestleMania done. Because there's not much you could pull to bring in more people to get that big groundswell. I mean, remember, that's 27,000 each night. Think about the fact that that's like, for them, that would be normally like 2 sold-out shows of Raw or SmackDown back in the day. Now, they struggle to get 8,000, 9,000 people for certain events. And that's it. Like, they're not even pulling. I mean, remember, that stage they now have cuts off so many more seats as it did before. So, with that, they kind of cut off their own capacity of crowds. But that's because they don't want to be able to sell. They're not going to be able to sell that many tickets anymore. They're kind of adding more space to kind of, save face for the fact they can't sell the seats. And we know they have a lot of shows where they don't have a full crowd there. And they have to move the crowd around. They are struggling right now to get people to watch these shows. Of course, people are watching on TV, but what are you motivating these people to go watch at the arenas? And it's not anything to do with the house shows. Oh, we could get some title changes. We could do something like that. No. Where are some box office draws that they have created that have such a viral field that people are just going to want to go because of that person? I mean, you don't have anybody that's going to, with sports entertainment, you're not going to get the 30 to 60 minute Iron Man matches, which will consume 2 to 3 hour event. You don't have that. So what do you have instead? You're going to get some 15, 20 minute matches. Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns might not go 15, 20 minutes, or unless they want to try to stretch it out. So you got to ask yourself, like, they don't have anybody out there that has all the intangibles needed to build a big match. I mean, you could give Edge a long match, but who's he going to take on? There's not much else you can go after. There are no other stars of the level that this audience expects, because the problem is you need to reach their expectations. It can't just be anybody. When you have created the expectations that a Stone Cold, Rock, Undertaker, John Cena are going to be at these kind of shows, and that's the level that you deliver every year, and yet the venues get bigger because some of those early WrestleManias, even the ones that were going on during the Attitude Era, were not all big arenas. They were not big stadiums. They were still in arenas. So what do you do now? Now that you got to fill these big stadiums, what are you going to do to get more people in there? I mean, you could put a concert there, and I guess you could put the Undertaker. Now, the other thing I heard about, which was actually quite interesting, is put the Undertaker Hall of Fame ceremony within the show itself. I'll tell you what you do. And it's true. I think you put that induction ceremony. I mean, if they can remove it off of Friday night, or just you do what you're going to do, and then you do a big ceremony for Undertaker, another special ceremony for Undertaker on the first night of WrestleMania. Maybe you do a match that is in honor of Undertaker, something like that. I don't know what you do. But you make something with him to build that show up for the first night. And then you build a couple other matches you're going to have leading up to it. But the Undertaker thing is like the big event. Maybe you have his induction specifically on that night. And if you're going to have a class of Hall of Famers before, then you lead it up to here, and then you go ahead and have that Hall of Fame. Now, do they need to have Hall of Fame after SmackDown? Not necessarily. I think they should very well build that up. Make it a one-man show, like Busted Open to talk about. Make it just Undertaker. Give him like 30, 45 minutes. Put that within the show. Put it like at the beginning or the middle. I mean, people are not going to be that pissed off about it. I don't think so. I don't know if it's going to be too much of an issue. Plus, they got to fill something on that night. And you put it in the middle of the show, first night, and then, like I said, then you make it where it says either Bianca and Becky or Charlotte and Ronda that close out night one, which has to be Charlotte and Ronda. And then Lesnar Reigns closes out night two. And you give them some time. Like, that match has to get 30 minutes. And like throw the Edge match night one. You cram a lot of shit on the first night. Cram all the mid-card stuff as you can on that first night. And then the SmackDown night will be the second night. And just, do what you can. The celebrity matches with Johnny Knoxville, Sami Zayn, throw that on night one. Throw the tag match with Logan Paul, throw that on night one. Do something with it. Make it celebrity studded and a Hall of Fame night. It's not going to make everybody happy. But when you got to book this show, what else do you have left? It's too late to worry about woulda, coulda, shoulda. They can't do anything now. They're stuck. So what is next for them? What can they do to build things up? Well, so there are a couple of stories that are talking about this that I wanted to point out. Wrestling Headlines actually talked about the biggest problem that they have. When he talks about the first 3 matches coming up, Reigns, Lesnar, Rousey, Flair, Lynch, Belair, he says those are WrestleMania main event matches without a doubt. And then Logan Paul will bring in some celebrity mainstream press. The other matches being rumored, Edge versus AJ Styles, Stone Cold, Steve Austin versus Kevin Owens, which that cannot be a match. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen like that. And if it was anything, that we would have done something right now. But it's going to just be a confrontation of face-to-face. It has to be that. Sami Zayn versus Johnny Knox for the IC title. Drew McIntyre versus Happy Corbin. Usos versus Viking Raiders, SmackDown Tag Team title match. And Naomi versus Sonya Deville. Wow. That's it. So Edge and AJ Styles, according to the story, could be a match of the year candidate. And yes, they have not faced each other yet. So you got that part, but okay, a couple of grizzled veterans. That's a good thing to have for Raw, and you can just really kind of milk some story with them and give them some promo time, because AJ has not had much promo time since his breaking up with Omos. And in the story, they talk about the fact that there's not a lot to look forward to. If you look at the little things deeper, the little things deeper, as most wrestling fans tend to do, you run into problems. We like Lesnar. There's no question there. But they talk about the fact that Brock has been booked so solid and he's been booked unstoppable. They continue to do that. I mean, yeah, you gave Bobby the win in a plunder fashion, but really there hasn't been many other times where Lesnar's taken a pin. It doesn't happen. He's not going to be in a long match. He had his match with Seth Rollins. It was 13 minutes. That's usually about as long as it goes. His match in Survivor Series 2018 against Daniel Bryan was 19 minutes long. You're going to say AJ Styles was 15 minutes. Samoa Joe, Roman Reigns, Braun Strowman, 21 minutes. 17 minutes against Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns at Fastlane 2016. Hell in a Cell against Undertaker was 18 minutes. And then when it took on Undertaker in 2015 at SummerSlam was also 17 minutes. But he's not going to go longer than that. I mean, that match is only going to take up so much time. So what are you going to do next? You don't have the matches are going to be the long. They're going to have that epic feel because they're going to go for so long and so drawn out, which is what we always expect with certain WWE pay-per-views. You either have Triple H out there or Shawn Michaels Undertaker. They get the long, drawn-out matches. You got that thing just going on forever, right? And they're good. But what do you have left? So day one's going to be tough. There's going to be, to match anything that even comes close to Lesnar and Reigns, they don't have. Right? They did some things that were premature by having, when Roman could not perform, and you had to go and put Brock into the 5-way of the title day one, because you had to get that show off the ground. It's booking the smaller events that hurt the bigger events. And there's no forward thinking about that. And that was one problem that they had. The Elimination Chamber, you take everybody down. I mean, he breaks the damn pod in the Elimination Chamber match and takes everybody out. He doesn't get to take out Bobby Lashley, which we know the story now, which even though they have not confirmed, but it's still supposedly surgery, and no matter what, he's not going to be back for WrestleMania to wrestle. So Brock Lesnar took out everybody. And so there's nobody else. I mean, you could have said that in the short term, Reigns, Styles, not so much Riddle and Austin Theory, but Reigns, it's going to be Rollins and AJ Styles. Hey, you might have hurt them a little bit. You might have diminished their star power right now towards the, right 6 weeks before WrestleMania. You did that part. But then you have, what else can you do? I mean, you got to get past WrestleMania. You got to find something else to add, especially on that day one. And I think for them, they're going to have to take the Undertaker, pull that Hall of Fame thing out, and they're going to have to drop that into their day one because he needs something else right there to put some star power. If you want to get somebody who's going to be there, give him a 2-for-1 on that. Put the Hall of Fame in there, just the Undertaker, put it out there, put it in the middle of the ring, and do that because you got not much else to go off of. You can milk that 30 minutes, 45 minutes, let him do his induction speech at WrestleMania, and there's not much else you can do. But that's a problem they don't want to have. They don't want to be doing that. Obviously, they want to have their Hall of Fame like they normally do, but they have no choice right now. And you took away Universal WWE titles, where if you just had title matches, listen, even if you had it where Big E or Bobby Lashley potentially, if Lesnar and Reigns was still just the Universal title by itself, you could still make something out of the main event for the WWE Championship, but you don't have it. And there's no way of taking one of those belts off. They need the title versus title. They have to build one of those nights, and that's the one. It would be great if it was just one night, but they booked them into two. So they got to figure out what that first night's going to be. The second night's going to be will be easier for them because there's a lot of stuff they can put right there. But what are they going to do with that first night? They got to have something. And on top of that, you only got a couple of matches that got some real buzz. 3 matches so far, you got buzz, and you got 6 weeks to build. What else do you have to make that go? Because WWE itself already struggles, booking for 4 weeks to try to put something together for storyline purposes. Like, I know they're going to have to build out all the stops just to build something in between for the beginning and the end of these programs now. And, of course, they're going to stretch them out the Backlash. So what are you going to do next? Right? This is the problem that we're going to come up from. But they didn't do anything. Well, I'm not going to say they didn't do anything, all right? They did try to build Austin Theory, and they've done a good job. He's gotten to a certain level. They did try to build Liv Morgan. They brought her up to a certain level. They did the same thing with Rhea Ripley to a little bit of a point. You could say that Omos has been built up a little bit. Alpha Academy, you could say they've been built up quite a bit. Bianca Belair, you were really going to kind of reestablish her after she lost the belt. And she made her chase back. Like, I think she is still the best booked person so far. Like, I feel there's a legitimate. I feel good about the fact they're going to give her another match against Becky Lynch, that she earned her spot. I mean, that's the one that they did do right. They did all these different spots. They did create logical storylines to earn for a number of these matches to be put together. You use the Royal Rumble and the purpose for that. Use the Elimination Chamber and the purpose for that. You don't have a Money in the Bank case to cash in. That was already done. I mean, why did Biggie need to be the champion back then? Why couldn't he have been booked now? I mean, they couldn't do that either. But you didn't have that available in your cachet either. So what else is left? I mean, there's not much left to go with what they can do. Now, in the story, they go on and say, if you look at the roster right now, you're going to have a difficult time finding people that are being written and handled well. So what about Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss? Yeah, they've been working on them. But people are not really feeling much about them anyway. Biggie back with New Day once again. I mean, the fact that they decided to go and put him back into the tag team picture doesn't help. But the truth is, I think Biggie, with all the work he's been doing, to not keep him as a single star for WrestleMania. I mean, you didn't have to go ahead and take him away from the whole main event picture, but you did. But at least you could have kept him in a solid, steady singles feud, but I think because of the fact that Xavier Woods got hurt again, they had no choice but to go and put him back together with Kofi and go with that. Not much else you can do. Or is it Xavier? I forget. I'm sorry. So there's no excitement. The level of excitement that everybody wants to have is not here. Well, that's one story they talk about it here. There's another one I could take as well that give the same kind of complaint. And look, all these people have a reason to say something. They all have legitimate gripes here. So anybody that's in the wrestling press, the dirt sheets that want to talk about it, yeah, you definitely got reasons for concern. And all my podcast brethren, they can also have things where they're also going to feel pretty upset too. Oh, by the way, Goldberg, his current deal with matches after he just finished the one he did with Roman Reigns at Elimination Chamber, he doesn't need any more matches on his contract and he needs to get shoulder surgery. So that's it. I mean, what are you going to do? The Usos and Viking Raiders and build that up a little bit more? Not much you can do with that. So they're struggling all together. There is not much of a plan in place. And I don't know what you do next to make it happen. There are no stars they can bring back from the rubble to come back and go and do something to go and build a night. They don't have that. Oh, by the way, there's a story that actually came out that Jeff Hardy is actually going to be going to AEW. Looks like it's being confirmed. And there was something where they mentioned, what was it? There's a Twitter feed, Macho Beard for Life, where in a YouTube video, they posted that he confirms he's going to AEW. But he does say, quote, I'm going to AEW. I'm so excited. And there we go. But there is nothing else left for them to do to get things off the ground. They don't have anything. If they're going to do something to pull it off, they're going to have to do the Undertaker thing. That's the only idea I can think of. But there's nothing they can do right now. There are no other tricks of Vince McMahon's sleeve. There is no Shane McMahon type match. There is nothing like that that's going to build up to anything. But they don't have the big, larger-than-life stars right now because at the moment, they don't have anybody like that built to do anything right now. And any of the stars they had that were legends back in the day, they can't bring them back. And what do you have left to do? I mean, we all would like to see Edge and AJ Styles, but really, ask yourself, if you had to put somebody else against Edge, you could take the Edge spot and put somebody really big right there. Something shocking. I don't think it's Cody Rhodes. I don't think he's the answer. But is there anybody else you could put right there that you could bring back to do something? This is a constant problem for this company. They have not figured out when they realize, well, the thing is, if they're able to sell it out, they're just going to just brush it off anyway. They're not going to care. But then what do you do after that? I mean, it's a different thing where they know they're going to probably be able to fill out one-night shows going forward when it comes to Money in the Bank or SummerSlam or another Saudi Arabia show or whatever. Sure. But that WrestleMania, man, it's getting tougher and tougher to do that. They don't have any plans. I mean, listen, you can go back to Rock next year. Maybe that's the case. When they go to LA, I think it is, the SoFi Stadium. All right. Like next year's going to be another challenge. And what are they going to do about that? This company needs to figure this out. We already know that the fans are going to pan this pay-per-view because they're going to feel like it's below and beneath the normal expectations. It's diminished value, diminished creative, and there's no kind of creative that this company can do right now to make a story go so big for any of the matches they already have scheduled. Like really, there's nothing you're going to do to build up and make Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey any bigger than it is, or to make Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair any bigger than it is. There's just nothing you got. Edge and AJ Styles? Possibly. But there's not much you can do. There's not much there to go with. I mean, there's going to be a big deal where RK Bro Alpha Academy, if they put Rollins and Owens and they make it a triple threat, I think that's a pretty good size. That's a pretty good star-studded match right there. You could start off a night with that. You could start off night one with that. So there's nothing you could do to enhance and inflate the hype on certain matches. They don't have that right now. I don't know what they do next, but they're in a tough spot, man. I don't know what they're going to do. But this is where I'm not the typical diehard, bubble WWE diehard fan. That's why I'm so happy I have other shows to watch. Like right now, I mean, listen, I got MLW Fusion got to watch right now, and I know it's coming up. You got, what is it? Hammerstone and Richards going to be facing each other. I don't think that match is, the thing is this weekend they're doing the super fight, right? So there's that match to look forward to, which will be nice to watch on TV coming up. The story with Richard Holiday now screwing over Hammerstone's a really good stuff. Like, I love what MLW is doing right now. And they don't get any kind of pressure or anything at all. I think I'm one of the few people that even talk about Major League Wrestling. But all the Lucha Aztec Underground, the Cesar Duran stuff, it's all fun. That's a fun little 1 hour show to catch on the YouTube or on BN Sports, wherever you watch it. And it's really fun. It's good stuff. And I think their production value has gotten better. I'm not so big a fan of Steve DeAngelis anymore, but he's still out there anyway, working his thing. We still got to think about Ring of Honor. Nothing's been talked about that yet much either. Like, I'd like to see if there's other announcements about that, because that's also coming up, and I have not seen anything about that so far and what's being said. But it's coming up April 1st. So it'll be, what, the Thursday before, I think it is? Oh, Friday, April 1st, Curtis Colwell Center in Dallas-Fort Worth. As far as I know, I don't think they had said anything about what the matches are going to be done. But there's one story they talked about that, okay, Briscoes will defend the Ring of Honor Tag Team titles at Supercard of Honor. We know about that. We know that Ian Riccaboni and Chris Coleman will be doing commentary. There will be TV tapings, I guess, the next night after Supercard of Honor. They'll have that. The Ring of Honor matchmaker is said to be asking for fans' opinions on what matches they want to see at the pay-per-view on April 1st. 8 matches will be scheduled, and the headline main event will be Ring of Honor World Champion Jonathan Gresham versus Bandito to determine the undisputed champion. And the Briscoes will defend the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles. And we can see what they're going to do if Impact Wrestling gets involved and they bring them back in somewhere, something like that. We can see if that's coming up pretty soon. But we don't know yet. But that show's coming up. We're not talking about that either, but that's going to be an interesting show. But there's just not much else being said about when it comes to WrestleMania weekend in general. And what else is going on? Like, there's just not much being said. So maybe WrestleMania needs to find some other things. Some other things they're going to talk about to really build that up. But they're struggling right now. Anyway, I want to see if they can pull something off. But look, I'm content with the show. Let me put it to you like this. I'm content with what they're going to do. I'm not worried about the expectations. I mean, for me, just give me a decent show to watch. Like, I don't expect this company right now with what they're doing. They need to be realizing the rebuilding mode right now. And they better figure out something where if NXT 2.0 is going to be their saving grace in about 2 years, they better get Braun Breaker and Toxic Attraction and Grayson Waller and Duke Hudson and all these other people. They're going to start building them up, and they're going to have to start throwing people after WrestleMania season, post WrestleMania. They're going to have to start throwing some new names, and they're going to have to replenish that roster. So if you got to throw Braun Breaker out there, and Mandy Rose, and all these others, and just shake it up, go full rebuild, and then find a way. Maybe you don't do it then, you do it after SummerSlam, because obviously they're going to keep with what they're going to do with Ronda Rousey being around and Brock Lesnar being around. They'll probably keep some storylines. They'll go status quo all the way up till after SummerSlam, because they got to make sure Money in the Bank's taken care of, WrestleMania Backlash, and then what you do is, after that, whatever comes up in September through December, you flood the roster on both Raw and SmackDown with some NXT 2.0 stars. You bring them out, and you start getting them up and hot now. And you know what you do? You start making them win a lot. You have to go against the grain of what you've been doing before, where it's hot and cold booking, even Steven booking. You have to start booking these stars like they're unstoppable. That's the only way it's going to work. And let them do the promos and the work that they're able to do. Give them some time. Give them some stars that can go ahead and get that are going to be enhancement talent to them and going to bring them over and start building some upset matches. I don't know what else you do. But you cannot live on your laurels anymore. There's just no choice for that again. So what are they going to do? That's what I'm looking at all together right now. So anyway, next week, I will go ahead and talk about Revolution. We'll do a pre-show for that. We'll go through pretty comprehensive. And then we'll have the post-show on Sunday to talk about that. By the way, we also have TNA Sacrifice going on as well. So if I get the chance to, I'm going to probably watch that on the Saturday before Revolution. So we'll talk about Sacrifice after, in the same show as the pre-show for, or the post-show for Revolution, AEW Revolution. By the way, if you didn't get a chance to listen, I did do a post-show for Elimination Chamber. And I also did commentary and talked a little bit about the Impact Wrestling No Surrender pay-per-view that was very good this past weekend. Talked about that. Make sure to go look at that. WrestlingIsReal.com. Check it out for yourself. And we'll leave it there. That's it. Hour's done. And if WrestleMania season had much more hype, I would have been rolling through this show, and I probably would have run out of time much sooner. But we got here. Hour, like I said. Want to make sure to take care of all of you. Thanks for listening in. As you always do, come back next week for another Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at WrestlingIsReal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.